indeed, you were one of the first, if not the first, interrogators present when Abu Zubaydah was brought into custody for the first time outside of Pakistan, correct?
Yes, sir.
And your testimony indicates that within the first hour of your interrogation of him, you had gained important actionable intelligence. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
At that point, his condition was such that you indicated that we had to take him to a hospital or he would die. But at the hospital, you continued your questioning. And it was during your questioning of him at the hospital that you elicited information regarding the previously unknown role of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed as the mastermind of the 9/11 attacks.
Correct, sir.
One of the more significant pieces of intelligence information we've ever obtained in the war on terror, correct?
It's one of them, yes, sir.
And all of this happened before the CIA CTC team and the private contractors arrived, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then they arrived, and immediately you say, on the instructions of the contractor, harsh techniques were introduced, which did not produce results as Abu Zubaydah shut down and stopped talking, correct?
Correct, sir.
And with that happening, you knew he had good information. He'd shut down under the harsh techniques, and so you again were given control of the interrogation, correct?
Yes, sir.
When you were brought back, it was in the second round, pursuant to appropriate tactics, that Abu Zubaydah disclosed the details of Jose Padilla, the so-called dirty bomber, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then, again, the contractor reasserted himself and began re-implementing harsh techniques. And again, Abu Zubaydah shut down and stopped producing information. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
The line between domestic and international, whatever you want to call these things, not torture, is a thin one. In every war that we have used torture, the Philippines, when we use that in insurgency, those guys, they come home. What kind of jobs do they get? They get jobs as policemen, prison guards, and your private security officials. And behind them follows torture, or not torture, call it what you will. Chicago is paying $20 million thanks to Mr. Burge and his 50 detectives who brought all their lovely techniques back from Vietnam. Look, at the end of this war, whether these guys get their way or not, people are coming back. And they're going to be your cops, your neighborhood officials. They're going to be your private people. And yes, there is a difference between domestic and international, but this stuff travels.
Did the Bush administration use torture to try to obtain false confessions about a connection between Iraq and al-Qaeda that did not exist in order to justify the war with Iraq? It is a charge that is gaining attention and credibility. Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson, Colin Powell's former chief of staff, was on this show last week. He will join us again in just a moment. He wrote last week in the Washington Note that Vice President Cheney's office, quote, ordered torture to find justification for the invasion of Iraq. Wilkerson is backed up by recent reports. On April 21st, McClatchy newspapers reported that an anonymous former senior U.S. intelligence official said, quote, extreme methods were used to establish the links between al-Qaeda and Iraq. Last week on this show, former NBC News investigative producer Bob Windrum reported that Vice President Cheney's office suggested an Iraqi intelligence officer be waterboarded in Iraq to try to prove the connection the White House wanted. Charles Delfer, the Iraq weapons inspector, also said on this program that Washington urged the use of aggressive techniques to try to establish an Iraq al-Qaeda connection. And Major Paul Burney, an Army psychiatrist who was present at some interrogations, testified to the Army Inspector General's office in 2006 that, quote, we were focused on trying to establish a link between al-Qaeda and Iraq. The more frustrated people got in not being able to establish that link, there was more and more pressure to resort to measures that might produce more immediate results.
The report is principally focused on the problems. And what I'd like to highlight in particular this morning is the real leadership void that we see in global efforts to address those problems. The international human rights movement at a non-governmental level is strong and growing, but we need governmental allies. And unfortunately, as we survey the scene, the governmental response has been weak. Perhaps foremost, the foremost thing that comes to mind for me is the demise of U.S. credibility as an effective promoter of human rights. We chose today to release our World Report because today is also the 5th anniversary of the arrival of the first detainees at Guantanamo. And there is no better symbol for why American credibility has been undermined on the human rights front than Guantanamo, which has become a global symbol of torture and harsh treatment, of detention without trial, and of, once again, a lawless place, a place that exists beyond judicial scrutiny. Frankly, one can't preach what one doesn't practice. And so as a result, while the United States can still talk in broad terms about democracy, it can certainly still help curtail severe atrocities, as in Darfur, it cannot credibly combat efforts to use torture, the disappearance of suspects, or the detention of suspects without trial, since those are all abuses that the United States itself has been committing.
El-Masri, who was a German citizen, says he was abducted in Macedonia on New Year's Eve of 2003, taken to Afghanistan, beaten, drugged, and interrogated about alleged connections to al-Qaeda. He claims this all happened at the hands of the U.S. government as part of the CIA's rendition program. Then, 5 months later, he says he was simply let go.
5 months, they simply took me back and dropped me like a piece of luggage in the woods in Albania.
U.S. officials have privately admitted to Germany he was captured by mistake, but publicly have said nothing.